Good day, APNPI. Welcome to our judging event for our accreditations, round 2 of 2019. We have 3 great judges with us. 2 of them actually that you've probably seen advertised on the blog have not been able to join us today because they are sick, unfortunately. So Lizzie Gilmore in New Zealand, she'll be with us next week, and Leanna McCorkle is also unwell today. So Stephanie Robin is taking their places. And so Stephanie, you all know Stephanie Robin, she's from Burlington, Ontario. She runs Stephanie Robin Photography and has won numerous awards all around and speaks all over the place, and she's just great. So thank you, Stephanie, for filling in last minute. Then we have Jessica Nip, and she's out of Toronto, Ontario. And she also has been a speaker recently at Tuck and has been taking part in APNPI stuff, so we're very happy to have you here. And she runs Jessica Nip Photography in Toronto. And we have Corrie Michael of Corrie Michael Photography, and she's from Brantford, Ontario, and has some really wonderful work as well. So we're really excited to have all 3, and we're going to have a great event today. And we're excited for all of the makers to see their images in action. And so we're going to get started without any further delay. Okay, we have our first image up, and I'd like to ask the judges to show their scores, please. And we have 2 accepted. This image will be accepted. Our second image is on the screen. And if the judges could show their scores, please. And we have 2 accepted, and that image will be accepted. And our third image. And could I see the scores, please? We have 2 not accepted on this image. So I'd like to ask Stephanie for some commentary, please, for the maker.
Sure. Initially, I was going to accept this image, and then I noticed some of the same problems that I'm seeing in other images in the portfolio, mainly to do with artifacting in the background. You'll notice that there are in above the baby's shoulder blade area. If you move upward in the image, you can start to see it in that area there, and a little bit of color shifting throughout that gray backdrop towards the greens. And so I think that a little bit of focus on that in editing would certainly help. The only other critique I have for this image that I'm not really seeing elsewhere would be that the image is looking slightly flat in terms of the lighting. So just moving your light a little bit to the side of the baby. So, instead of coming in front of the baby and pointing at their face, moving a little bit to the side of the baby with the light source would have helped here.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next image. Okay, so I'm going to ask the judges to show their scores, please. And we have 2 accepted. And this image will be accepted, and we'll move to the next image. Okay, and we'll ask to see the scores, please. Okay, we have 2 not accepted. And Jessica, I'll ask you to make some comments for the maker, please.
I like the pose and the intention of this image to show how the baby is, so the size of the baby and how he or she is so tiny compared to Dad's hands. What I found distracting was the dramatic change from light to dark. And in the light areas, when I look closely, I don't see a lot of texture in the baby's cheek and forehead. So I found that very distracting, as well as the very dramatic shift from sharpness in the dad's arm to blurred in his hand. I also found very distracting, and that's why I didn't accept this image.
Thank you. We'll move to the next image, please. And I'll ask the judges to show their scores. And we have 2 not accepted. And I'll ask for some commentary from Stephanie, please.
I love the connection here between the siblings. One of the things that I think when you're working with a kiss scenario, usually it's that moment before or after the kiss that's actually most interesting. So catching this just slightly before or after the moment that's shown here might have given you a little bit more detail in terms of the baby's face and just the profile of their face rather than missing elements due to the siblings' nose and lips in the area there. The other main critique that I have for this image, would be that they're very, very close to the background. And so moving them away from the background would have helped a lot in terms of the texture that you're seeing there. It would have blurred that out a bit.
Thank you so much. And we'll move on to the next image. Okay, and the next image is up. And I'll ask the judges to show their scores. We have 2 not accepted. And Jessica, I'll ask you to make some comments for the maker, please.
I like all the various shades of blue, and I can see both babies' faces are lit. My main concern with this image was that the top baby is well in focus. However, the bottom baby is not on the same plane. So I don't see any eyelashes, and the lips are also a bit blurry. So that is the reason I didn't accept this image.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just quickly add here that the same issue with the background is happening with the artifacting or polarization in the background here.
Mm-hmm. So something for the maker to watch for. Okay, and we're going to move to the next image. And I'll ask for scores, please. 2 not accepted. And I'll ask for some comments from Stephanie, please.
I'd like to comment on this image that this is just such a beautiful, beautiful image and something that I'm really hoping can be saved in post. For me, I love the tones used here. I love the color harmony between the headband and the backdrop and the peachiness of the baby's skin itself. I'm not picky about the posing at all either. I know that you could move those hands a little bit further out to get a little bit more detail in the fingers, but for me, that's not really holding this image back. Again, it's that banding and polarization in the backdrop, unfortunately, in this image.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to the next image. And I'll ask for scores, please. We have 2 accepted on this image, and this image will be accepted. Okay, so we'll ask for the next image up, please. And I'll ask for scores. Okay, we have 2 not accepted. Stephanie, I'll ask you for some comments, please. I'm not hearing you, Stephanie.
Sorry about that. I was saying, sorry. Again, I think that this maker has a really great grasp of posing in general. I think that they're able to do a really beautiful job and maintain a peaceful, calm look on the baby's face. Polarization and banding in the background here again. So the artifacting is something you really want to look out for. And again, it's looking a little bit like there's a mat put on top of the image, or some sort of bluish tone on top that they've then masked away. And so in those corner areas, it's looking a little bit heavier, and I would maybe lighten that up.
Thank you. We'll ask for the next image. And I'll look for scores, please. Accepted across the board. So that image is accepted. And on to our, I believe, our final image. And can we see your scores, please? Accepted across the board again, so that image is accepted. Okay, congratulations to the maker. You've got some things to work on, and you've got a number of accepted images as well. And we're going to move on to the next submission. And we have another in the category of newborn posed, and this is a resubmission, so we'll be looking at fewer images. Okay, now this image, this submission has only one image to resubmit. So we have it here, and I'll give just a couple of seconds, and then we'll ask to see the scores. Okay, so let's see your scores, please. 2 accepted and 1 not accepted.
Can I challenge that?
We do have a challenge. Okay, we're gonna go in the benefit of the maker first. Corrie, I'm gonna ask you to speak in the benefit of the maker, please.
I really love the tones and textures in this image. I think the lighting is really great. The only thing that I would really suggest outside of that is the hand that's closest to the wrap is a little bit farther out than I would like to see, and just a tiny little bit of repositioning, whether it be under the cheek this way or just pull that elbow down a little bit. But other than that, I think it's a beautiful image.
Thank you. Jessica Knipp?
I absolutely love this image. I love the lighting, the posing, the rich colors, and the textures. And it was really a technicality that I see in the cloning, which is around the left towards the top. There are 2 very dark Zs, one on top of each other, that I saw when I looked closely. And I really wanted to accept this, but that is, I mean, if you printed it large, they would be really, they don't go with the little squares in the pattern of the fabric. And for that reason, I did not accept this.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna rescore the image.
Can I just have a second?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you seeing the Z? Sorry, again?
On the left side, just above the middle, so above the middle line, in from the left a bit, there's like these little pointy Z or arrow looking artifacts from cloning.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask for the scores, please, for our rescore. All right, and we have 2 accepted. This image has been accepted, and the maker has passed their accreditation, so congratulations. We'll move on to our next. We'll just wait for it to pop up. Here we are. So we're going to be in the category of maternity. It's a new submission. And we'll look first at the overall submission. And it is up on the screen. We'll give just a couple of moments and then we'll ask for scores. Okay, are we ready for scores? Okay, we'll go ahead and show our results here. Okay, 2 not accepted. Stephanie, which images would you like to see?
Images 4, 6, 8, 9, 11.
And Jessica?
Images 4 and 10, 11, and 12.
Okay. Gwen, why don't we queue up those images? We'll start at image number 4. So here we have that up. And I'd like to see the scores, please. Okay, we have 2 not accepted. And Stephanie, I'd like to hear some comments from you, please.
Okay, I absolutely adore this image. I think that this maker has done some wonderful posing here. My main critique, and something that I'm seeing throughout the submission portfolio, is that the horizon line is running directly through the heads, and it's quite distracting. I love the tonality. I think that this maker has done a great job of preserving sky, water, detail. It's really just that horizon line for me, and I even like that close connection between the foreheads and eyes, even though, you know, I perhaps would have liked to see them separated a tiny bit to bring more light into the eye socket areas, but it's not enough that I would not have passed it for that particular detail. Really, it's just that horizon line for me.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to image number 6, please. And I'll ask to see scores. 2 not accepted. And Jessica, would you like to comment on this, please?
I think this is a great happy moment for this family that the photographer captured. I just wish that I could see the father's face, which is totally lost in this particular frame. And I wonder if the photographer captured, you know, a couple of seconds before or after the kiss, and maybe all 3 family members would have been visible in this moment. So that was my main reason for not accepting.
Thank you.
Additionally, I would just like to point out the horizon line again.
Again. Okay, good. So let's see now image number 8, please. And can I ask for scores, please? Okay, we have 2 accepted.
I am going to challenge this one.
Okay, all right. So in the benefit of the maker first, Corrie, would you like to speak, please?
Sure. I think this is just a fun, absolutely beautiful, creative image that just makes me smile when I look at it. I love the idea. I think the composition is great. Like, she's right in between the boats. There's nothing popping out of her head. Usually these kinds of things happen in this kind of an image, and I just think it's a really fun, creative image.
Thank you.
Do you want me to just jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I do agree. I think it's a wonderfully set up image, and I do love the posing here and the carefree nature, even the way that the head is, she's tipping back a little bit on that arabesque in terms of her jawline and making it look a little tiny bit uncomfortable with that raised shoulder. But I mean, you can't ask for better than this with a maternity and dancer. I really do like the way that it's center composed here with the lines leading into her. For me, it's really the loss of detail in the sky and the inclusion of the watermark, which I don't think is a component that is accepted for accreditation. Normally, images must be submitted without the watermark, and so for me, that's a really distracting element, and the placement of it right in line with, if you move to the right, it's in line with an area that I personally don't want to draw attention to in an image, but my eye cannot help but go to that watermark and then straight to that tool right where the crotch is lined up. So for me, that unfortunately, along with the blowouts in the sky, sort of took away from the impact of the image.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and rescore this image. And we'll see your scores, please. And we have 2 not accepted, so this image is not accepted at this time. And we'll move on to image number 9. And I'll ask for scores, please. We have 2 accepted and 1 not accepted.
I'm going to challenge.
Okay, go for it. So
only because I want to. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, of course, and you want to hear probably what the others have to say. So Jessica, I'm going to ask you to start for this challenge, please.
I accepted this. I love the pleasing sunset tones and the warmth in the image. The posing looks comfortable and very serene. I love how the lines of the waves are leading us into the subject that's placed to the right of the image. I thought it was a great, beautiful sunset image.
Thank you. And Stephanie?
So I agree. I do love the placement of the subject here. I do think that lining the eyes up on the rule of thirds would have helped here, and also in the sense that if the maker had come down in order to get those eyes lined up on rule of thirds, they would have avoided running that horizon straight through the top of her head. Additionally, in terms of the posing, I think that if they would have angled her slightly with belly coming towards the camera just a little bit more, so that forward shoulder leaning back slightly and the belly coming forward a little bit, they would have introduced a bit of an S curve on that lateral spiral, and would have slimmed the model in that sense, because here we're really seeing the full width of her, and popping the knee out would have helped with the S shape. But I do agree on the tonality and that beautiful styling of including the reds and the inclusion of that headband here, or a headdress, I'm not sure what they're called, halo. Quite lovely in terms of the posing and the editing.
Thank you. Okay, let's do a rescore. I'll ask to see your scores now, please. And this image is accepted. Okay, we'll move on to image number 10. And I'll ask for scores, please. We have 2 accepted. And this image is accepted. And we'll move on to number 11. And I'll ask for scores, please. We have 2 not accepted. And Jessica, could I hear some comments from you for the maker, please?
I think this image has beautiful skin tones and details in the skin texture. I think the reflection was handled well, and that it's not overpowering, but there's just a hint of it. I thought that was a nice effect. And my issue was with the posing, in that I can't see what she's resting her head on. So it looks like she's I'm not sure if she is resting on something or she has super abs and is able to lift herself like that, but it just looks a bit uncomfortable. And that is the reason I did not accept this.
Thank you. And our final image. And I'll ask for scores, please. And we have 2 not accepted. And Stephanie, could I ask for some comments from you, please?
Oh, I so badly wanted to accept this image. It's such a beautiful handling of this conversion, and I just adore the expression on the mom's face. I think that it's quite lovely, and you know, the belly, and I love the inclusion of that front hand caressing the belly, but I have no idea where it's coming from because of the loss of detail in the light. And so I would have liked to see a little bit more detail over the mom's bust line, which is quite difficult to do in the black and white conversion where you have a black background and black clothing. So I think that that would have been something that could be handled in post-processing, and you can bring this one back, please. Because if I had seen a little bit more detail in the bust line of the mom and in that little hand there on resting on the belly, I think that would have made the difference between accepting and not accepting the image for me.
Thank you. Okay, so that wraps up this maker's submission, and we thank you for submitting, and we hope you've gained some feedback that you can take and work with in the future. And we're going to move on to our next. So our next one is a resubmission, and it's in the category of maternity. Okay, so we have 3 images being resubmitted. Just give a moment for the judges to look at the images. And if we could see your scores, please. Okay. Let's go image by image since we have just 3. First image, could I see scores, please?
Oh, sorry.
Accepted. Okay, good. Congratulations for this image being accepted. And we'll move to the second. And we'll look for scores, please. 2 not accepted. Corrie, I'm going to ask you to give the maker some comments on something that she could work on with this.
I think it's a really great effort by the maker. Really nice posing. I think there's a good connection there from mom to son, and a good connection with the boy with the photographer. This image just seems so much cooler than the rest of the submission, and not falling into that cohesive pattern with the rest of the submission. So that's what's really stopping me from accepting this image.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add too?
Absolutely.
I find that the casual nature of the clothing on the boy versus the dress on the mom is a little bit of a disconnect there, and I would have liked to have seen perhaps one of mom's hands interacting with the boy in some way, in a hug or a and perhaps getting him up a little bit higher. So putting him up on a step stool or something would have helped to bring him closer for her to accomplish that with her hand.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to the next image. And we'll ask for scores, please. Okay, we have an automatic challenge here. We have 1 accepted with merit, 1 accepted, and 1 not accepted. So, in the benefit of the maker, please, I'll let Stephanie kick it off.
I think that the maker has truly handled this image really well in terms of styling, in terms of posing, in terms of expression, in terms of, you know, I feel that her expression with the styling is very complimentary. I love that little bit of hesitation in that top hand. You know, in the posing, I think that she just looks introspective and regal, and that is, you know, reflected not only in her posing and in her expression, but in the choice of clothing, the choice of backdrop. Beautiful color harmony here between her hair color, the color of the dress, the backdrop itself. I feel that it was really handled well in terms of the lighting. Mom is really popping out here against those, you know, rich tones. And I just think that they've done a wonderful job with this image, and that it would certainly place in an image competition.
Thank you. And let's hear from Jessica.
I agree 100% with everything that Stephanie has said. At first glance, I thought all those things until on my Lightroom screen, I had all the blacks get highlighted from the loss of detail. So I took a closer look, and the numbers show that there is not very much detail, if at all, in the darkest areas of the image. So that is the reason that it held me back, because I thought the creativity, the color, the posing, everything was perfection. It was just the clipping of the blacks in the image.
Hey, thank you. So we're going to give just a moment, and then we're going to rescore. Okay, we'll go ahead and show your scores, please. And this image is accepted, with one accepted with merit as well. So congratulations to the maker on this image. And thank you for resubmitting, and we'll look forward to that one image coming back. And we'll move on to the next. We have Newborn Posed up next, and it is a new submission. And we have the entire submission up on the screen. We'll give a minute to look at it. And can I ask the judges to show their results, please? Okay, so Stephanie, I'll ask you, which images would you like to see?
I think there's more than 5.
Okay, would you like to go through them all?
I think so, yes.
Okay, let's go image per image. Okay, first up. And can we see results, please? We have 2 accepted, and this image will be accepted. We'll move on to the next one. And I'll ask for the scores, please. And we have 2 not accepted. Jessica, could I hear from you, please?
For this image, I find baby looks posed comfortably. I like the relaxed expression and a little bit of a grin, which is lovely. The distracting element here for me is the skin tones are reading very yellowy and orange. And I think just a little bit of desaturating of those tones would improve this image.
Thank you. We'll move to the next one. And we'll ask for scores, please. We have 2 not accepted. Corrie, can I hear from you, please, for something that the maker can improve on?
Yeah, I love the color used here, and the baby does look all nicely tucked in. I just would like to see the bottom hand out a little bit so that we can see, like under the chin, so we can see some of her fingers. I would also crop it. I feel like there's a little bit too much of the backdrop along the bottom there. I also would like to see a little bit more fall off light and a little bit more shadows. It's close to being too flat lit for me.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to the next image. And I'll ask for scores, please. 2 accepted. And this image will be accepted. And we'll move on to the next. And I'll ask for scores, please. And we have 2 accepted.
I'd like to challenge.
Okay, so we're going to start with hearing from the benefit of the maker, and I'll ask Jessica to start, please.
I think that the photographer has a good attention to detail here. I like the connection. Both mom and baby's faces are in focus. I like that the skin texture is preserved on both faces as well. The lighting is soft, and I find the transitions from the shadow to the light is very gradual and very pleasing.
Okay, thank you. And Stephanie, let's hear from you, please.
For me, there's one big technical flaw in this image that really could be remedied with light placement. Oftentimes when we put the heads opposite, it can be quite difficult to find complementary lighting. And in this instance, unfortunately, mom is very complementarily lit from the, forehead right down across the face. However, baby is suffering in the sense that the light is directed directly up their nose, causing them to have, the large shadows on the cheeks above here in this area above the cheekbones, and that uplighting, ghoul lighting effect. So a very simple solution to that would have been to bring the light to the side and to side light both faces rather than properly lighting one and uplighting the other. Unfortunately as well, because the baby is the one that is upright in the image and mom is upside down in terms of the way the image has been presented, it's that much more difficult to accept because the subject who has been properly lit is now upside down. Your eye doesn't want to translate to them being the main subject. And so all I can see is this uplighting on the baby here.
Okay, thank you. We're going to rescore this image, and I'll ask to see your scores, please. And the image is not accepted. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. And I'll ask to see scores, please. We have 2 accepted. And we'll move on with this image being accepted. Okay, the next one is up, and I'll ask to see scores, please. Accepted across the board. So we'll move on to the next. And I'll ask to see scores, please. We have 2 accepted.
I'll challenge.
Okay, so let's hear from Corrie, please, and the benefit of the maker.
I really like the styling in this image. The romper and the headband match well. and the color theme with the backdrop goes well. I like the lighting as well. I do like to see that little bit of fall off that I'm seeing, and the shadows, so I'm really liking that. And I think the only thing that really is technically bothering me is that hand just coming out just a little bit more so we can see some of those fingers under the cheek. But other than that, and maybe just tilt a little bit, but I'm happy with accepting it.
Okay, thank you. And let's hear from Stephanie, please.
Yeah, so I have seen images like this in past, very similar images, and the majority have not passed accreditation. And I would agree with everything that you've said, Corrie, especially your last commentary, which is that the angle of this image leads the eye to believe that the baby could slide off of this platform quite easily. And so it leaves you with a very big sense of unease in the image. Now, the baby is posed so beautifully here and has such a peaceful look on their face. So that element of, worrying about that sliding is really the only thing holding me back here. And the way that it's been cropped, you've put the bottom of the baby so close to the edge at the bottom there. So it really just leads me to believe that, they could drop out of the bottom of this image any moment. Very simple fix, could possibly be even fixed, even if this is the pullback, the full version of the image. In post-processing, you could add a little bit around the baby and just tilt that and, re-edit around the edges where you have missing canvas, because otherwise, beautiful color harmony, lovely pose. It really is just the composition here.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and do a rescoring. And we have 2 not accepted, so this image has not been accepted. Okay, next image is up. And I'll ask for scores, please. 2 accepted.
I'm going to challenge this again.
Okay, thank you. So Jessica, I'm going to ask you to speak in the benefit of the maker, please.
I think this image is beautifully lit. The skin was beautifully retouched. I would have liked to see a little bit more of the bottom hand, but that doesn't distract me too much.
Okay, so let's hear from Stephanie.
There are a couple of things in this image. While I agree 100%, lovely color harmony, beautiful skin handling here. There are a little bit of cool tones in under the eyes and that, but not enough that it would bother me, and a bit red on the shoulder, but nothing that I think would hold it back. For me, the biggest things would be the polarization in the blanket behind the baby and the color shifting that you can see directly behind the baby's bum. And you can see it as the very first is quite a light band right around the body and the leg, and then after that dark and then light and then dark and then light, and it sort of goes right up into the top of the frame there in the left, and with the color shifting towards the greens as well there. So if looking in high resolution in Lightroom, there is that factor. The only other thing that I would point out about the posing would be that underneath leg with the foot positioned as it is, it looks almost as though it's growing out of the knee, and like a strange little piece of flesh that is I know anatomically it's coming from the leg, and I can see a little bit of a hint of what is likely the lower leg of the baby on that left leg, but it isn't clear enough to me in this position.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and rescore. Could I see your scores, please? And we have a not accepted. Okay, so this image will not be accepted, and we'll move on to the next. Okay, can I see scores, please? We have 2 accepted. And in the absence of a challenge, this image will be accepted. And I'll ask for scores, please. We have 2 accepted.
Can I just get a break for 1 second?
Yep.
Thanks. Sorry, I think it's my hard drive that just got delivered. So just give me a second.
I'll just conclude that this image is accepted, and we'll queue up for the next one. Okay, we have our final image for this submission. I'll ask the judges to show their scores, please. And we have not accepted, and so I'd like to hear some comments from Corrie, please.
I really do like the peaches and the headband and how everything really flows nicely here. It's just very cool in comparison to the other images in the gallery, and I would just like to see a better skin tonality.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so that concludes the submission, and we thank the maker for taking a chance and putting your work out there. It's never an easy thing. And we hope that you have learned some valuable things, and we look forward to your resubmission. And we'll move on to our next category. And we have our first macro submission. Okay, we have all images up. You'll notice that one image is a collage. This is a requirement for this category. It's the only category that has a requirement to submit a collage of images. And we'll just give a moment more for the judges. Okay, I'm going to ask the judges to show their scores, please. Okay, we have 3 not accepted. Corrie, would you like to tell me which ones you'd like to see?
There's more than 5.
More than 5?
Do you want me? Okay. I think pretty much everything with the exception of the collage I would.
Okay, not a problem. Okay, so we're going to go through each image one by one. Our first image is up. And I'd like to see the scores, please. We have 3 not accepted, so we're going to ask for some comments. Let's start with Corrie, please.
I really think it's a great effort here by the maker. It is a little cool in comparison to some of the other photos in the submission. If this is a macro of the face, I definitely would like to see more of the chin. I feel like it's just cropped way too close to the lip there. If we're either focusing on one, like we're either focusing on the eyes or the face, and if it's the face, I'd like to see more of the chin. And yeah, I think that's about it. I just feel like the composition and crop is what's holding me back, and the coolness of the image.
Thank you. Okay, so that image was not accepted, and we will move on to the next one. And I'll ask for the scores, please. Okay, we have 3 not accepted. Jessica, would you like to speak to the maker, please?
I think the lighting is pleasing and the skin has some nice warm tones. I'm not sure if the focus of this image was the eyes or the lips. If it was the eyes, there's one eye that is in focus and the other one isn't. So it was just a little bit distracting for me.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go on to the next image. And we'll look for scores, please. Okay, this image is not accepted. Could we hear from Stephanie, please?
Sure. I think that this image is meant to focus on the nose as a component macro. And I would encourage the maker, if you are meant to focus on the nose, perhaps consider a composition that would eliminate something like the eye, which is something we are trained to look for in imagery. And so in this instance, the eye is completely out of focus. So there's two solutions that you could use here. If you were trying to accentuate the nose in this image, either open up so that you are using an aperture that's, you know, in 8.0 or larger. You'd need a lot of light, but really with macro, you would need one that, you know, closed in order to include that much focal range to get the eye and the nose both in focus, or just compositionally try something different. Crop right in so you're only seeing the little nose, or perhaps focus on the nose from the front, which a lot of babies have milia and that cute little white spotting on their nose, which can be something, another way that you can photograph a nose in macro.
Thank you. We'll move to the next image, please. And I'll ask to see the scores. Okay, this image is not accepted. Corrie, can I get you to speak to the maker, please?
Sure. I do love little baby ears, but what's really distracting me is, I don't know if it's a hat or a headband. Like, I would just rather see the hair there than that headband as well. It is, again, a little bit cool in comparison to some of the other stuff that we're seeing in this submission. And yeah, I think just really focusing on the ear and eliminating some of the other distractors in this image.
Thank you. We'll move to the next image. And I'll ask for scores, please. Okay, this image is not accepted. Jessica, would you like to speak to the maker, please?
I love how relaxed the hand looks here. I can see all the details and the little fingernails and the skin. The piece of lint dropping down from the pillow towards the shoulder is could benefit from just being retouched. A little simple cloning there. And I also see very strong magenta tones on my screen that are very distracting for this image.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next image. And I'll ask to see scores, please. We have two not accepted and one accepted. And so this image has not been challenged, will be not accepted. And Corrie, I'd like you to speak to the maker, please.
I really do love this macro. It's a beautiful shot of the feet. I like the wrap around it. I really like the composition of it. What's really holding me back is how red the feet are. I think just, you know, just a little bit of tonal change in that and fixing that up would buy me into accepting this image.
Thank you. And our next image is up. And we'll look for scores, please. This image is not accepted. Stephanie, would you like to speak to the maker, please?
Sure. For this image, I believe you're looking to focus on the crown of the head. And while this baby has beautiful, beautiful hair, I'm quite distracted by all of the other elements that have been left in the image as well. So especially the big bumps of the blanket, which are so large in comparison to those, you know, soft and fragile strands of hair next to it. My eye keeps wanting to be pulled down to that brighter area of large bulbous knit layer. And additionally, the little piece of the headband left in the top of the frame pulls my eye again away from what we want to be the centralized focus. And if I could give an overall comment to the maker of something that I've noticed on many of the images, getting a closer crop would be very, very helpful in eliminating a lot of the distracting elements around whatever it is that you're attempting to focus on in terms of a macro.
Thank you. And we'll move to the next image, please. And I'll ask to see scores. And this image is not accepted. And Jessica, would you like to speak to the maker, please?
Yes, I like the use of the light and shadow here. There were two distracting elements to me, which I do see in many of the images in Lightroom right now, which is the strong red tones. And in this one particular, the white diaper or pant on the bottom left-hand corner. So those two elements were what held me back.
Thank you.
Can I just quickly add something positive for the maker here?
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy the way that they've come from the shadows in this instance, where they've lined themselves up to shoot from the shadows, which I think is so effective in macro imagery. And had you had a tighter crop on this, maybe converted to black and white in order to get rid of the distraction of any of the reds, this could have been an accepted image.
Thank you. So something they could work on in post?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Okay, we'll go to the next image, please. Now, the idea of looking at a collage is to see what the maker would present to a client, either as a suggestion for a wall collage or an album spread, you know, any kind of, often we do creative things with our macros. So that's sort of the idea here, rather than scoring each image in the collage, right? And I'll go ahead and ask the judges to show their scores. And we have accepted across the board. Stephanie, do you want to just say a quick comment to the maker on this?
Yes, I think in this collage, the maker has selected, you know, it's a beautiful skin tone, first of all, I will say. So a lot of peach tones. They've really controlled for the reds here. And in a couple of instances, they've worked from the shadows, especially on the image of the lips and the image of the toes a little bit, and the side profile. You could still get a little bit tighter in, but I just think that these are some stronger images in your submission by far, even including the image of the eyes in the bottom right. One small suggestion for a change in the design that would be more impactful, I think, would be in the middle of the design if you swapped the long with the short, and so they're not all lined up short, 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 long, 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 but instead you would have like a zigzag of the square elements in the design, and I think that could have added a little bit of visual interest, because the lines dividing wouldn't then be so choppy and straight through the collage. But the imagery in the collage is strong. I do like the difference in the shapes and sizes of the imagery that is presented here, and I think they've done a great job.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next image. And we'll see some scores, please. And this image is not accepted. And Jessica, would you speak to the maker, please?
I love this moment and the capturing of this bubble, which I'm sure the photographer was, you know, they caught the moment just in time, and I like how they framed it. The distracting element here is, again, the white balance. And in this particular image, I see a lot of blues and magenta. So I think just warming it up a bit would make a huge difference.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that brings us to the end. Am I right on that? Is that the last image?
No.
No, is there one more?
Two, I see two
Oh,
more.
it's two more. My goodness, I'm off on my notation here. Okay, our next image is up. I'll ask for the scores, please.
Sorry.
Okay, so this image is not accepted. Corrie, I'd like you to speak to the maker, please.
Really great effort here. I really do like this image. Again, the cropping in, that forehead, that blurry forehead is really causing a distraction for me. I need it to be pulled in just a little bit tighter. The focus is there. It just needs to be, the composition needs to be a little bit different. Would also, for me, watch the highlights along the bridge of that nose. It feels a little bit brighter than some of the other images in this submission. So those are the things that I would be talking about.
Thank you. And our next image. And we'll look to see scores, please. Okay, and this image is not accepted. Stephanie, I wonder if you could, this is the last image this time, right?
Yes.
Would you like to comment not just on this image, but in general to the maker?
Sure. For me in this image, I find that the lighting, again, had you set this up to shoot from the shadows, I think that you could have done a better job of exemplifying the toes themselves. And I imagine perhaps we're looking to look at like the tops or the ridges of the toes where the nails are. And so the way that it's currently lit, it's a bit harsh lit on the right side of the frame. So that right foot is quite a bit brighter than the left. And so you could have stacked the feet rather, or even kept them the same and photographed from above or photographed from the shadows in order to control for that harsh lighting coming in on the right. I do, however, like that there's a stream of light in the background that seems to be coming down and sort of like directing your eye towards those toes. So that's for sure a positive element of the image. Overall, I think, again, this image is likely suffering from the same things that I'm seeing throughout the portfolio, which is that we're not quite close enough for the macro. I feel that if you were to compose your images to really get in nice and close into the elements that you're looking to capture, you'd avoid the distracting elements, like in this image, for instance, the fluff on the right-hand bottom corner side that is slightly darker in tone, but then those fluff pieces are light as well. So your eye wants to go to that because it's in focus and it's distracting. So you would cut out a lot of those distractions by getting quite a bit closer. And then in terms of the exposure, perhaps not looking to have such harsh lighting or such harsh lighting can be great for macro imagery, but usually the way I control for it and that I think it can be successfully controlled for is to shoot from the shadows. So if you simply line yourself up with the shadow side of the element you're wishing to photograph, you can get some lovely highlights coming in that really do pick up those textures in the little wrinkles in the toes or the fingers and the nails. So really macros are all about contrast. They're all about using the contrast to direct the eye towards the focal point of the image, which should be whichever element you're looking to focus on. So get right in there, shoot from the shadows, and look for contrast. And I think that that will greatly improve the macros that you're submitting. But I do want to commend the maker because I think it's a brave category to enter, especially as a first submission. I think we do have a few maybe in this round. And I think that you have a lot of things going right. So you clearly are able to get babies into poses so that you can focus on certain elements, and that's a challenge in and of itself. So well done to the maker for that.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again to the maker for putting yourself out there and for taking a chance on this. And we hope that you'll come back with some changes, and we'll look forward to your resubmission. Okay, we're going to move on to our next one is maternity, and it is a resubmission. So we have our resubmission up on the screen. I'll give just a minute for the judges to look at it. Okay, I'm going to ask for scores, please. Okay, so all three judges are saying not accept. Jessica, can you tell me please which ones you would like to see?
I would like to see number 2, number 5 and 6.
Okay, Corrie?
I would like to see 4, 5, 6, and 7.
And Stephanie?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Okay, let's start with image number 2, please. And we'll ask to see scores, please. We have 2 accepted. And this image will be accepted. And we'll move on to image number 4. And I'll ask for scores, please. We have 2 accepted.
Can I challenge, please?
Yes, you may challenge. So we'll hear the benefit of the maker first. I'll ask for Jessica to speak.
This image really jumped out at me with the vibrancy and the richness of the tones. I thought it was excellent how the photographer chose that color backdrop to go with the dress, or maybe they chose the dress for this lady and matched it with the backdrop that they had. But either way, I thought it was a great compliment and good color harmony. The posing looks very comfortable and the smiles look very natural. So I thought this was a great job.
Thank you. Corrie, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I do really think I agree completely with everything that Jessica has said. I'm really struggling with the dress. For me, it really, the sagging of the arm, the bunching at the wrist, it is so distracting to me that it brings me to that not accepted point. I love the posing. I love the lighting. I love the color of the backdrop. Like everything that Jessica has said is absolutely true. Her hair, it looks beautiful. I just cannot get past. There could have been, I know myself in studio, just take even elastic and pull the dress and elastic the back of it just to make it look like it fits better. And that's really holding me back.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and rescore this image. And we have 2 not accepted. And this image will not be accepted. Okay, we're going to move on to image number 5. And I'll ask to see your scores, please. And so this image is not accepted. Stephanie, would you like to speak to the maker?
Sure. I think in this instance, the maker's done a really great job of handling the backdrop. I don't see any, distracting elements, banding, polarization, artifacting back there, or color shifting necessarily. Either the background has a texture or they've added a texture, and I think that's very complimentary for the image. And I also like the fact that they coordinated the color of the backdrop with that tattoo art down the mom's shoulder. I think that that's a nice tie-in. I do find that the posing of the mom for me is a little bit of a hold back on this image. I think that it's lovely that she does have an arm down in order to connect with her daughter, but I would have liked to have seen that arm involved a little bit more in bringing her daughter in, or just a little more involvement than currently it seems to be just hanging straight. Additionally, you know, it can be difficult to pose moms who are not size 0, and I know I wasn't one. So it's something that you really want to pay special attention to. And I think that popping that front leg just to give a little bit more of an S curve, and bringing that arm away from the side a bit, even if it meant a different placement for mom's hand. The daughter's hand could still have been on the belly, and perhaps it would have intermingled then with fingers rather than over top of the dorsum of her hand. But bringing that elbow back a little bit and away from the body slightly would have helped with slimming of the arm. So those are, you know, things that I really think could have helped the image.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to the next image. Here we are. And I'll ask for scores, please. So this image is not accepted. And Corrie, would you like to speak to the maker?
Yeah, I really do love the connection here between these two. I really like the hand placement of Dad. I love their holding hands. I really like her hand placement. I'm very distracted by the line that's coming from the shadow to the lightness there. I would just have suggested finding a different place to shoot where there was a little bit more consistent lighting. It's very distracting to me, that line of shadow versus light.
Thank you. And our final image. I'll ask to see scores, please. We have 2 not accepted and 1 accepted. And in the absence of a challenge, that will not be accepted. And I'm going to ask for Stephanie to make some comments for the maker, please.
I think that there's such a lovely, lovely interaction here between the mom and the toddler. And I think that it's quite a beautiful expression between the two of them, and also incorporating the new baby and with the hand on the belly here again. I find her bangs in front of her eye very distracting here, and I would have liked to have seen her gaze looking down towards the toddler. And so, you know, just simply brushing the hair back, or one of the things that I try to look at is which side the hair is parted on when I'm posing, because it can be quite difficult when you nod the head towards the side where the hair is not parted. Oftentimes that hair will fall in front, versus if you had positioned the baby on the other, or the toddler, sorry, on the opposite side when she looks down, then it becomes easier to see the face and the facial features. And so that's one of the things that I would have changed for this image. I do love the complementary colors of the yellows and the blues. However, I feel that the toddler's clothing in terms of the shirt and the shoes don't quite match the feel of the image. They are quite dark in contrast to everything else that's happening that's very pastel. And simply removing the shirt and having him barefoot would have solved that issue, because the blue of the jeans do pull in nicely with the rest of the styling in the image here.
Thank you. And I believe that brings us to the end of this submission. Again, we want to thank the maker for submitting your images, and I know this was a resubmit. And you know, we are mindful that this can sometimes be a tough process. And during our last break there, the judges were talking about how hard it is sometimes to give that feedback. But we want to just keep encouraging you to keep taking the suggestions and keep working on them. And usually, pretty much in all of these situations, we understand that probably your clients loved the images. And at the end of the day, that is very valuable. So don't take that away from yourself. But just keep working, and we look forward to your resubmission. And that goes for everybody in this process. We're going to take a quick break. Okay, we're moving on. We have a category in newborn posed, and this is a resubmission. We have 2 images in this resubmission. And I'll ask to see the scores, please. Accepted across the board. Congratulations to the maker. Stephanie, would you like to give a quick comment to the maker on this?
Sure. I think this maker's done a wonderful job in both of these images and in the styling and the color harmony. Just really, really spot on with both of them. A lot of time and care obviously went into the setup for these images. They're both so different, and yet they still work as a collection of images. I could see how a photographer could offer both of these styles or elements for their clientele, and I think that they would be fine together in a gallery on a website or that sort of thing. I think that especially in the image with the wreath, they've really done a great job of handling skin tone. Sometimes that's a bit dependent on, you know, how the babies arrive. But certainly this maker has a good knowledge of lighting, and the compositions here are also very lovely. So I think it's really well done for this maker, and congratulations on your accreditation.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. We have family and baby. And I believe this might be either our first or maybe second entrant in this category. So this is exciting to see a little step out of the norm. And we have all 12 images up on the screen. We'll give the judges a couple of moments to look them over. So just a reminder for our audience, the judges are looking at cohesion here for consistency, as well as for quality in each individual image. And they have had a chance to, you know, some people ask, well, how can you tell from a small thumbnail? The judges have gone over these images already. They have had a chance to see them all in large. So when we're looking again, it's sort of a refresher. And okay, so I'm going to ask to see the scores, please. Okay, so we have not accepted. And I'm going to ask quickly, Jessica, which images would you like to see?
There are more than 5.
Okay. Stephanie and Corrie, do you each feel that there's more than 5 for you?
There's more than 5 for me as well, yes.
Okay. Let's go through each image one at a time. We'll start with the first. And I'll ask to see scores, please. We have 2 not accepted. And this image will not be accepted. Corrie, would you like to speak to the maker, please?
Yeah, I really do love this image. I love the connection, the facial expressions of the mom and the little girl. Hand placement is, I mean, very intentional. Like, I really love this image. The only thing for me is the lighting up the nose. So again, just placement of lighting or repositioning of baby so that the light isn't going up directly at baby's nose, and yeah, just better shadows.
Good, thank you. So we'll move on to the next image. And I'll ask for scores. So this image is not accepted. Jessica, would you like to speak to the maker, please?
Sure. In this image, I found the skin tones looked pleasing. The subjects looked well lit. People are in focus. And what's held me back is it's just the posing. And I think just a little tweaking of the posing would have improved the image to where it didn't look uncomfortable. I feel like dad is kind of crouching and leaning down, and mom is kind of maybe, I don't know if there's something in between them, but she can move a little closer to close the gap in the middle. I would suggest moving mom to the other side of dad so she could snuggle into his arm and have her hand on the baby as well. So, and neither of them would need to, want to kind of snuggle into the middle, which looks a little bit awkward to me in this pose.
Thank you. Let's go look for the next image. And we'll ask for scores. So this image is not accepted. And Stephanie, we'll ask you to speak to the maker, please. Oh, I think you're on mute there, Stephanie.
Sorry, so sorry. This type of image is so difficult to achieve with these ages, the strata of ages that you have here. And so well done to the maker for having 3 awake children, or four awake children. And they're all kind of looking and attentive to the camera. So that's definitely, bonus points for you for that. I think there's a few things that could have been done differently in order to make the image a little bit more pleasing to the eye. And one is the oldest sibling who's holding the baby. It's understandable why you would choose her to hold the baby. It's also understandable that you might think that it's better for her to be seated doing so. But the way in which she is posed with both legs forward towards the camera puts her knees and feet closest to the lens. And as happens with photography, anything that's closer to the lens will appear larger. And so her legs and her feet take up quite a bit of the frame and seem really large in comparison to the other elements in the frame or in the image. I think there are some styling choices here as well that I might have tweaked a bit with the dark tones in the image, and just to be careful to have everything in that sort of lighter tonal range. Personally, I think this would have worked really well to have all 3 seated together. So either on a couch setting or a settee or a bench, where they're seated together. I do want to point out that there are some serious strengths here in terms of all of the subjects are all touching, and we have a beautiful cascade of heads down from the left to the right, and there's a lot going right in this image. A little bit of separation too, or a different color choice in terms of the wrap for the baby would perhaps helped here, because it blends right in with that girl's dress, the oldest daughter's dress, and I feel that a different choice might have helped pull in those darker tones as well had you gone for a darker wrap for the baby here.
And thanks so much. Okay, we'll move on to the next image. And I'll ask for scores, please. Okay, this image is not accepted. And Jessica, would you like to speak to the maker, please?
I would just like to say good effort and patience by the photographer to get everybody here looking. I noticed there are 2 young children, and I'm sure this took quite a while to get everybody looking at the same time. What I found distracting was the crop at the bottom of the boot, which I actually could overlook because everyone's well lit and in focus, but then that crop led me to my eye over to dad's pants, which has the cell phone in it, and those 2 elements together then pushed me to not accepting this image.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to the next one. And we'll look for scores, please. We have 2 accepted images.
I do want to challenge, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a challenge. So let's hear in the benefit of the maker first. Corrie, would you like to speak, please?
Sure. I know how hard it is to photograph twins. So super awesome effort to getting these babies in these parents' arms. And I really like how how they're lit. I love the expression on mom and dad. You can tell how like joyed they are to be there with these two twins. So I really, really love all of that. Yeah, great effort.
Good. And Stephanie, please.
I agree 100% with everything that you're saying, Corrie. I think that the focus of the mom and the dad, if you just look there, so beautiful and such lovely posing incorporated here with the, you know, being so close together. I think that there is a change that could have been made that would have increased the safety in this image for the babies. And I did not see an SOOC included here. And I do feel that we have two babies that are sort of wrapped and somewhat upright and teetering. And I think that's why a lot of the focus of this image goes up the nostrils of the babies, because they don't have the support behind the neck to keep them from sort of teetering back that way, since mom is trying to handle both. And as well, because of that posing, she has a very gloved appearance to her hand in the front, which also makes it appear a bit bigger. It is cut off by some of dad's hand in the posing, but you do have that like very web separation type look in the hand, which hands tell so much about the story of the image. And I would have liked to have seen her hands a bit more relaxed. For me, had one of the babies been posed in the crook of dad's arm and then the other in mom's and had them laid there, you could have had a very similar setup with both babies close together, but finding better support for both of them so that you could have tipped their faces a little bit more so that the angle would have been a bit more complementary for them, and they would have also had a bit more support in the cervical spine area for the image.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and rescore that. Okay, this image is not accepted. And we'll move on to the next image. We'll look for scores, please. And this image is not accepted. Jessica, would you like to speak to the maker, please?
I like the lighting in this. I can see everyone's face and the details. I love baby's expression and the natural expressions in the parents. I think this image would have benefited from maybe a closer crop so that the hand on the right hand side of the image, we can see it, because right now it's just this piece of skin there that's distracting me.
Great, thank you. And we'll look for the next image, please. And can I see scores, please? This image is not accepted. Corrie, would you like to speak to the maker?
Sure. I really do love this pose with mom and baby, and I love mom's expression. Mom's hand closest to the camera is again a little bit distorted because it's so big and so close to the camera, so I would suggest having mom drop that left shoulder and bring that right shoulder just a little bit more forward to the camera. Also getting that hand underneath baby's head just a little bit so that that chin pops out and the forward tilt of the head comes a little bit better. That piece of hair on mom's neck is very distracting to me.
Thank you. And we'll look for the next image, please. And can we see scores, please? And this one is accepted across the board. Stephanie, would you like to give some comments? Yes.
Sorry, just wanted to say this maker has a really big strength in emotion. They have a good eye for emotion, and I think that that's definitely something to play up in their work, because it's a common central theme that I'm seeing through the images, and most of the images, when they are not accepted, don't have anything to do with the emotion of the subject. So well done in that, and I think this is just such a cute example of that. You know, the dad's shirt is a little bit busy, but I can see that this maker does include plaids in their style, style, and that's fine. That's a personal choice. And, you know, I wouldn't fault them for that. And I do love the color harmony here between the shirt, the backdrop, and the baby's attire. So well done.
Thank you. Okay, the next image is up. And we'll ask to see scores, please. We have 2 accepted. And in the absence of a challenge, that image is accepted. And we'll move on to the next image. And can I see scores, please? Ooh. Okay, this image is not accepted. Corrie, would you like to speak to the maker, please? I think we can't hear you, Corrie. Oh, okay, well, I'll let you, you're muted now, I can see. We cannot hear you, no. Okay, so we're having a bit of technical difficulty with Corrie. So Jessica, would you like to comment on this image, please?
I understand this was likely a very difficult image to capture with 3 children, 2 young girls and a newborn. So I do applaud you for getting this image. Everybody's well lit. The skin looks great. I love the color choice and all the accessories with the blanket and the dress. But the one distracting element is the lack of the eye contact from the older sister on the left. I just can't pass that element from this image.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Okay, we have our next image up. And I'll ask to see scores, please. We have 2 accepted. And in the absence, we have a challenge. Okay, thank you. Stephanie, let's hear from you for In the Benefit of the Maker, please.
I adore this image. I think that the maker has done a really beautiful job of handling contrast here, and I do really quite like the conversion. As I was saying before, this maker is quite brave in their styling and clothing selections, and for me, I would have quite difficulty with it, but I really like the way in which that the patterns of the clothing direct attention towards the baby in this scenario. So the pattern down mom's shirt as well as the horizontal lines on dad are directing towards the baby here. I like the connection between the parents and the gaze down at the baby. Enough to forgive the small things such as the blown highlights that I'm seeing in the wrap and in dad's glasses, and that little piece of sliver of white on the left side behind mom's neck, which I think, you know, had it been cropped a little bit differently, that could have been handled as well. So I do feel that this would pass accreditation. I think that this would receive at least a 70 in an image competition. And so for that reason, I accepted the image.
Thank you. Thank you. Jessica, let's hear from you, please.
I agree with Stephanie. I love the posing. I love the connection. I love the backlighting and the silhouette of, you can see all 3 faces. The main concern here is I see a lot of black clipping. So even when I try to lift the shadows a little bit, there's absolutely 0 detail in baby's hair. It's just a mass of black, as well as along mom's neck. Even if you were to lighten it just a tad in Lightroom, it is just a blob. So I wonder if the maker could have used maybe a slightly higher ISO, or just adjusted the exposure a little bit, or had a different exposure on a different image from this session. That would make the difference in the printing, because that is a lot of clipped blacks for me in this image.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to just come back and say, I'm not seeing that on the back of the mom's neck, perhaps within her hairline, but I don't think that that detracts from the image itself. I do see what you're saying in the baby's area, the area of the hair for the baby. And I think your suggestion there is correct, but I don't see that in the back of the neck of the mom.
Okay, let's go ahead and rescore. And we have 2 accepted, and this image will be accepted. And let's look at our final image for this submission. And we'll go ahead and see scores, please. And this image is not accepted. Who would like to speak to this one?
I can speak.
Go ahead.
Again, photographing twins with the sibling is not an easy task. I think it's such a great effort. I love the tones and the peachy tones and how the dress matches the floral arrangement and the mint greens in there. The composition for me is what's holding me back to accepting this image. If we had have turned the image a little bit this way, so we're not seeing the siblings' legs come down and we're not clipping off the bottom of the first baby in the image.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to queue up or to trigger a little discussion on the choice of lens. Stephanie, I don't know if it's possible to bring up all of the entire submission back up onto the screen there, just so that we can see what we're talking about. But I wondered if we could get a few comments on lens choice and see if there's any way that we can help the maker a little bit with sort of an overall theme.
Yeah, I definitely think a possible change of lens from a wide angle lens to possibly a portrait angle lens for, I mean, I don't know what her studio looks like, if it's a little bit of a smaller studio and she's moving to a wide angle lens to try and get everything encompassed in there. But I think moving to a portrait lens would help with some of the distortions that we're seeing from entry number 3 with the legs coming out, mom and dad's hands holding the twins in 5, and then again in, I believe, 7, that elbow of mom feeling a little bit big there.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we want to thank you again for submitting this submission, and we commend you for a job well done and for taking the chance, and we hope that you've received some really good feedback. This wraps it up for today. We're going to be back next week, well, I suppose soon in the broadcast for our viewers, but we'll be continuing next week, and hopefully we'll have our 2 judges back that were sick today and who couldn't make it. And we just thank you all again for taking the time and putting yourself out there. And we just recognize this as an amazing growing opportunity. You know I've been there myself, submitting my own work for various judgings and accreditations. It's not easy to do, and yet some of the greatest growth comes from these endeavors. So congratulations to you all, and have a great day, everybody.